All right, Keith, we're about 2 minutes from noon on August 27, 2024. And we do this stuff a lot, but we both made a prediction that the jury in the Tom Girardi case would be coming back today. At least that was both of our feelings. You actually went one step further and said just before noon you thought there would be a verdict. Well, we're about 2 minutes before noon, so tell us what you know.
There's a verdict. And so we've found out the jury has spoken, and they found Tom Girardi guilty of all 4 counts of wire fraud. So he was being charged with 4 counts of wire fraud. Apparently he's been found guilty of all 4 counts, and the court has set his sentencing hearing for December 6th. But yeah, sure enough, the jury decided the matter before lunch. And I said if I was a betting man, I would bet that it'd probably be by lunch. And I guess the question is, why did we feel that way? What did we think, why were we able to predict this the way we were?
Well, we were able to predict it just based on our experience, but also because the evidence here was so strong. And as we saw the evidence that was laid out over, 12 days of trial, it just got worse and worse for Tom Girardi. And then, of course, his defense attorneys were doing the best they could, but they weren't addressing those issues. They were trying to blame other people. They were saying, even if he did do this, he's an old man, be sympathetic to him. And that's not going to fly with a reasonable jury. One thing I was worried about was that sometimes you do get a jury where one of the jurors likes to hold everybody hostage to some degree. But ultimately, they generally get the right result. I love the jury system. 99% of the time, they get it right. They got it right here. I'm happy to see that. This won't return money to people who got screwed by Tom Girardi, but it gives people dignity. It gives people to know that the system does work when somebody's caught doing this kind of stuff, and he's going to be held accountable. He's 85. I wish he was 65 so that he could actually be properly punished for this. But still, his legacy is now zero. It's worse than zero. He's harmed these people. He will go to his grave knowing that he's done these things and shouldn't have done these things. And think about it. He really was, back to the analogy of Icarus, he really was Icarus here, where he thought he could do no wrong, flew too close to the sun, and he's crashed. He's burned in. He's been found guilty. And so those are the facts now. The facts are that he embezzled money, that he's guilty of wire fraud, that he harmed his clients who he promised to help and protect. And those are the facts now, as found by a jury of 12 people.
Yeah, and the jury did a great job, and it does just show just how great our jury system is. And nobody ever enjoys that notice that you get in the mail to go do jury service, but it is very important. And I wish that he was 65 just so that hopefully he wouldn't have hurt as many people going until he did before we finally get this criminal conviction. But I think that you made the point multiple times when we were talking about this trial as it was unfolding, is that the defense never really hit to the heart of the issue, which is where's the evidence that Tom Girardi didn't do this? And they kept playing around the edges. And obviously the reason they did that is it's the best they had. Capacity was the best argument they had. They really didn't have anything more than that. Or blaming everything on Christopher Kamon. It's pretty much the best argument they had. Where was the evidence that Tom Girardi was outraged at Kamon for not paying clients or looking into these things or not lying to clients about why they weren't getting their money and instead telling clients, I need to look into this. This is troubling. I'm concerned by this. So it's not any surprise, I guess, that it ends up being a guilty verdict given the evidence that we saw during the whole trial and the way that it was stacking up against Tom Girardi every step of the way, it seemed like.
Yeah, and there's one person on this planet with their legal team that is thrilled right now, and that is Christopher Kamon.
Yes.
And I can give them some free advice. I'm going to give it for free. I'm not even going to charge them. You will be pointing to Tom Girardi as the scapegoat in your trial, which I believe starts in January of 2025. And the other thing is, I think that anything that Christopher Kamon did from a dollar standpoint, if he can get the jury and his jury to believe that he was given permission to do this from Tom Girardi.
Or instructions.
And that he didn't think he was doing anything wrong. But one other thing, a free tip to Christopher Kamon and his legal team, be apologetic for the people that were hurt and harmed. Be apologetic. Even if you don't come out and say, I'm guilty and I'm no good, come out and be a human being and identify with what these people went through. Now, that may not be enough. And we don't, I don't want to prejudge Christopher Kamon. I've seen some of the evidence. It looks bad for him, but give him a chance to put a case on. But if his defense lawyers do the same thing that these defense lawyers did, and again, they did the best they could for Tom Girardi, he would have been a really difficult client to represent. Not only from, you got to deal with all this evidence that is squarely against you, but you're dealing with a client that's probably not very easy to talk to. I'm just guessing. So Christopher Kamon and his lawyers are probably thrilled by this, and they will look at this and determine their strategy going forward in January of 2025.
So they'll be pointing to Tom, say, see, he was the mastermind. He was the one convicted. Everybody knows. And poor Christopher Kamon, he didn't know the rules that lawyers have to live by. He was just doing what he was told. He was following instructions. I mean, those are the type of arguments that you could expect for a guy like Kamon.
And he fell in love with a young, beautiful girl. And he gave her some money. That's what guys do when they fall in love with young, beautiful girls. Right. So again, if you're going to hold him accountable for falling in love, he's guilty. Right. But as far as, and not making wise decisions with his money. But again, we saw some evidence that looks like as much as $80 million might be responsible or maybe tied to him and his actions. But again, we want to give Christopher Kamon the benefit of the doubt right now. Let's let him, I want to see what his defense lawyers have to say and what arguments they put forward. And if they will actually answer the question, he did not do this, I think they may get a better chance at getting a jury to maybe give him a little wiggle room. But here, we said this all along, we felt it, and I'm so happy with this jury's result in the Tom Girardi matter. They have held this guy accountable. They've given, again, the victim some semblance of a victory.
And justice.
If
nothing else. And I really felt like when Tom Girardi took the stand, he didn't do himself any favors by being so adamant that he did nothing wrong.
Right.
And at a minimum, I think when you're in that position, and a guy like that, I think you at least have to admit that I had bad accounting practices. I didn't, you have to say something. I mean, you can't stand there in front of all of this evidence pointing in your direction and say, I did nothing wrong. Everybody got every penny they deserved. It defies logic. And juries ultimately, are going to see through that because they're going to rely on their common sense and think about, does that make sense? Does that add up? And it just didn't add up, obviously, to this jury. And I think they made the right decision in deciding that.
And ironically, the defense in their closing arguments yesterday said to use your common sense.
Right.
And the jury did use their common sense, and they came forward with guilty verdicts.
Yeah, it just turns out that the jury's common sense was a little different from the defense attorney's common sense. But they definitely did use their common sense. So,
well, Keith, I want to thank you for the fun we've had in covering this up to this point in time. And I'm sure there'll be more developments that we talk about from time to time. But this has definitely been interesting. I do feel great for the victims. I feel great for the legal system. And I feel glad that Tom Girardi is being held accountable for his actions. I want to end this by, at least from my part, there are a lot of good lawyers out there. In every industry, there's bad people. There's many good lawyers out there, fantastic people that truly care about people and want to help. They're humans, just like you and I. We make mistakes.
Right.
Yeah, we don't intentionally take money from clients, but those are things that I hope that over time, it takes time to repair reputations. Reputations are forever. But we hope that people will realize that most lawyers, I would say the bulk of lawyers, are here to help people and do the best they can. And unfortunately, the people like Tom Girardi, they bring the name of lawyers down. And hopefully this will bring some of that back over time.
I hope so too. Yeah, and I second that. And my heart goes out to the victims. I'm glad they have some justice. I feel very proud about our system. And hopefully people can see that, not all lawyers are like Tom Girardi. And really, it's just a few bad apples that ruin it for everybody.
Yep.
So this is our just a quick verdict video. We still want to do a trial recap and kind of cover our thoughts of everything once we have a chance to kind of sit and digest all of this. But we wanted to get this video out right now that the verdict has come out and came out relatively quickly. So stay tuned. We will have one more summary of the Tom Girardi trial.